of a certain movement said the following: "It's about keeping the demand vague. It's because of how the law works. If you ask for something too specific, you'll often end up nowhere, but starting with something vague allows laws to have foundation that have new laws we can build on." Respectfully, as much as I can understand the Stop Killing Games movement and what they want, well, kind of, it's an unfun fact, very not fun, that we have licenses. And also, this is not how law works. Not in the slightest. The Stop Killing Games movement, possibly one of the biggest contentions with it, is that it will rely on law to do a whole bunch of things it can't. It will rely on very centralized law, like really big corporations that really, oh, no, not corporations. Well, what is a state but a corporate, but a big one, but really rough, kind of hammering state power to just try and you do a lot. And let's see. The guy also apologized for going after Ross. Unreservedly, very nicely, and even promoted Luisrossman for, clapping back. It's like Coney 2012 all over again, and people really trying to scramble to quote unquote preserve games and play hero. Which is, I can get that. I can totally get wanting to play hero, but this is going to take a lot more than just hope, a lot more than just, well, whatever this is, to actually, work. That was part of the tweet. However, he since apologized that, and very unreservedly, that going after Ross was crappy. When really, it was a bunch of people who have co opted the movement just to get at him, just to get at pirate software. It's just a lot of people still upset about the World of Warcraft thing, just trying to cash in on it. And also a lot of people upset that they didn't exactly fully understand what he's against. Now, I get thinking Thor could be wrong about the empty room fallacy or the theme park kind of thing. I don't exactly agree with him on that either. He said always that privacy is a service issue. But there's a lot of people saying that his games have online DRM, and that is false. The always online DRM is absolutely incorrect. You can play the game offline. The thing is, it just checks for Space War because a lot of kids got really crappy keys from key resellers and they were being swindled with unofficial copies of the game. Or, because Brazil, and in its unfortunate comparative economic state, we're trying to do that. And what did said you could contact me on Twitter and we'll get you a real stuff, a real key, possibly for free. That's what happened. And unfortunately, Pirate Nation, the other person unrelated to Pirate Software, spread that misinformation like nothing else. And only and then when they ask, well, because this is what happened, because the person that was doing that left a negative hate review about stealing breast milk and why people like North Korea and China are walking into data centers just fine. And no, no, he was not involved with any of that. Not at Blizzard, not in anything. So let's. I know have been harsh to Ross. I know I've been harsh with some of my recent videos, and I'm just gonna unpublish them out of shame. But come on, there's got to be a better way. Unfortunately, with all the death threats, with all the harassing, with all the hey, we have to keep pestering somebody so we can get our numbers up. That's gross behavior. No. So yeah, that just about is the end of it. And hopefully I can just put links in the description. of just exactly how that went. Because I got some really nice clips that I think you could all be a little bit relieved to hear. Because it's an interesting movement. I'll give it that. It's just maybe a bit quixotic. Sure, I get that. And Thor has no ill will to that. He has actually stated it himself, and that he stated that going after Ross was incredibly crappy of him, and that people still lie about him. People don't. Well, why would you ever see someone doing right on live stream fails anyway? Why would anyone want to see or profit off of something that somebody already apologized for, addressed, and then bing bang boom? I'm a little bit depressed at Charlie and Jacksepticeye. I mean, I'm a very absolutely just also with Ababend because he took mistook the quote unquote fun fact of you only own licenses games as pirate software at you know giving saying that's a good thing, which he didn't. He did not not in the slightest. So yeah, that's how that works. And luckily, we can actually, stop the hate and harassment, so that we can actually, lower down his wall because that's why he has the wall up. That's why he didn't say anything for 11 months. And I don't know how Ross can say that his initiative was failing and blaming somebody else when his initiative, even if it's shy a few signatures, is really successful. Sure, it may not have reached a signature threshold, but that's getting a lot of people to give a crap about what you're talking about. That should be seen as quite the success, and another good old college try should certainly be able to fix the bridge the gap the next time. And but unfortunately, government's really big, and you can't exactly. I mean, how do you do it without forcing people to give up their IP and also the network stuff that is also behind licenses as well, or even like limited time collaborations with other users and the like, playable state. It's kind of a mess. But also, how do you allow consumers to be able to do this? And do you really need initiative to go to the biggest government body, multi-government body in the world to do it? Especially one that passes stuff like Article 13 and other stuff that isn't exactly the best pro-consumer or kind of messes up, and not to mention confuses fiction with actual harm. That's really messed up and doesn't respect victims. And sadly, there's also a lot of lack of free speech in the European Union. So preserving some games will probably be very difficult. And not to mention, modern sensibilities and people saying this age poorly and everything else. I think Stop Killing Games has a big blind spot of the censorship that has been happening throughout gaming's history, but especially picked up in the last 15 years, along with because of scrutiny of some of the worst actors. But yeah, that's kind of about it. And I would hope they address all this. And if you're a Stop Killing Games for supporter, I hope that you all get together so you can tell those harassers and everyone else and people who just hate to shove off because it's not helpful to your movement. It's not helpful to anybody. In fact, it kind of just really it just really doesn't say very good things about you, which is unfortunate because these people probably didn't have anything else to do except hate on pirate software because well, did you see how people got mad after continuous apologies and introspection? This time around he actually gave a sterling apology saying, "I did this. I messed up. There we go. Full stop." So there we go. And that's how it goes. But I hope some of you would understand that unfortunately there is a contingent of Stop Killing Games that thinks it's a little too easy to get what they want. That some I Ross, of course, bless his heart, but he just doesn't seem to be working with lawyers and other contractors, well, contract lawyers and other IP lawyers to try and get exactly address the central issue of a problem, which I think would help him immensely. And not to mention, just as AAA is enough, always wants to go out to screw you, they're also going to be the only ones that have the resources able to constantly whisper into the politicians' ears so they can continue to screw you over. But then again, maybe I'm a cynic. But then again, the EU does not know how the internet works. No politician does because they're busy politicianing. They didn't exactly go through computer science degrees and all that stuff. Which, well, you got to get the nerds on the floor, and that also includes Pirate Software and his dissenting opinion. But you can also call him the respectful opposition. Wrong or right as he is, I think it's okay that we actually talk and address this out like human beings, because when you didn't treat Thor like a human being, or, well, not I mean, when other people did, and that when they co-opted your movement, of course he's just going to shut down, because he's not going to have his viewers and everything else used for that. Because there was someone on their official forum saying, we have to continue pestering this guy in order we can get more petitions and more buzz. I'm sorry I have to say, but not all publicity is good publicity. And that was that. You could say he misrepresented by reading your initiative right on there or having some insight, but maybe he poorly explained himself, or maybe just the average layperson doesn't get it. But it's what it is. And with this person, you got to admit, this is pie in the sky. This is like, and I don't want to say this the wrong way, but childish naivete. Which is very refreshing in a kind of, cynical world, but we also have to be realistic. I mean, how would you even manage it? How would you even start? There hasn't really been much of a draft or process in this other than some pretty vague stuff. And, I mean, how would you define reasonable means? Because that's a big one. To keep the game in a playable state. Well, for how long, and how much is that going to cost a publisher, even if they chase... How much do they have to chase good money after bad? How much of it will be community driven, or, out of the hands of anybody, or in the hands of AAA studios that sometimes just are stingy? Or indies that really can't afford to deal with the bureaucratic brouhaha and other legal challenges and the expensive compliance updates and audits, which are going to have to be made if this is going to have to be a thing. At least I think so. Unless you can prove me wrong, and you probably very well could. And you could probably show that to the world and actually have a very nice, reasonable communication. Instead of just saying, and then just leeching off this drama that just does not help anybody. And certainly not helping your cause. Also, yeah, the censorship is a big blind spot. But to sum up, yeah, it's idealistic. We don't know how this is going to happen. We're going to have to talk with a lot of lawyers. Nothing has been proposed in any concrete way or fashion so we can iron it out. And I think it would be good to have input from those who develop games to say, okay, how much are we going to have to cost? How much are we going to have to spend in order to actually make a live service game? Or especially like Dune Awakening that doesn't have any microtransactions. If this legislation and this Stop Killing Games initiative goes through, but it ends up being costly to a producer, to a publisher or a studio of developers, that would mean Dune Awakening would have to introduce aggressive microtransactions so they can get their pound of flesh. Because tax dollars ain't gonna come to preserving games. Goodness knows. Goodness knows. They'll have to get their, they'll have to actually try to cover up the cost. And I don't think a lot of people think about that ahead. And I guess that's just the contention. There's also the big blind spot of preservation when it comes to content, or content that quote unquote didn't age well. Even the remasters and crap that we've been sold today, and like, ew, they're not, they don't even do a gosh darn good thing. Yeah, they're not true to the original. They have cut content, and because of European restrictions and other stuff, and very crazy bad faith people that have been coming up, well, I think it would be more than worth Stop Killing These Games time to at least analyze that. On the other hand, you can't exactly use an initiative to force somebody to say or keep what they don't want to, as much as it would be pro consumer to release things in their uncensored, unbowdlerized state. So, yeah, I think that about just about covers it. I hope you have a good day, and let me know what you think in the comments. Bye!